All right, welcome back. Interest rates likely will be heading for another sharp increase later this summer. Consumers are also anticipating higher inflation, but are they ready for it? The Fed has already raised the target interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point, now between 1.5% and 1.75%. That's the biggest single increase we've seen in nearly 3 decades. The Fed also signaled that larger, again, hikes are down the road. But how much larger? That's the question.
Right. I mean, we're in this really precarious position where policymakers acknowledge that the rate hikes could weaken the economy, but then they suggest that these steps actually have to be taken to try and solve the problem, which is, obviously raise the rates higher, slow the pace of the economy, control the rate of inflation, which, by the way, is more than 8% right now. So we crunch some numbers. This is what it means every month. Each credit card payment or adjustable rate mortgage payment you have to make could eventually be 5 to 6% higher than they are right now. That's significant.
Yeah, right now the average American holds $6,000 of credit card debt. The average interest rate is up about 20%. So if that goes from 20 to 25%, when you have a $6,000 balance, you could be paying, another $300 a month, Bianca, and that's just in interest. You're not even paying down the principal.
That's just for credit card. That's not on top of gas prices and food. It's all terrible. We're trying to look for that silver lining. We're calling a money huddle, as always, as what we do. Analyst and president of Zuma Global will welcome in Heather Zumaraga, and also with us today, Seth Denson, a Newsmax contributor and a business analyst. Guys, great to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Bianca. Good to be here.
Great to see you. Heather, to you. Ladies first. So how high do you think the Fed will have to raise interest in order to put a stop to inflation? I mean, they've used the word restrictive. Jerome Powell, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, historically, the interest rate set by the Federal Reserve needs to be GDP plus inflation. Well, interest rates need to be GDP plus inflation at some point in time. The Federal Reserve controls those short-term rates. And so when you have inflation running rampant, as you said, around 8.6% on the CPI right now, and we've got a 10-year, I just checked before I hopped on, back above 3%. That's a big difference between 8.6% and 3%. So they have a long ways to go, although some market forecasters are expecting the Fed to actually cut rates next year, though, if you can believe it, because if there's a recession coming, the Federal Reserve would have to cut rates versus increase rates. But I don't think that would be the smart move right now to tamper some of these higher prices that we're seeing.
And Heather, that goes back to this idea of uncertainty. This is what we talked about last week, Seth. Jerome Powell was saying, I don't really know how bad inflation is. I didn't see it coming. But people hate uncertainty. What do you tell your clients, and what should people be doing now to prepare for these high rate hikes?
Yeah, listen, it's all those things that you can control, right? I was gone last week, but I watched Heather and Johnny duke it out a little bit and talk about those interest rate hikes. Listen, you got to prepare for what you can. You got to control. So Bianca showed a great graphic about adjustable rate mortgages, credit card debts. Those are things you're going to want to focus on. If you're carrying debt and if it's adjustable, you want to focus on those types of things right now. You want to get those down. You want to focus on your credit score if you're thinking you're going to need to be taking out a loan, because the slightest difference in that credit score is going to be the difference in what interest rate you do and don't get. Heather brought up a good point about the 10-year bond rate. That typically is what sets mortgage rates. They follow that. Mortgage rates have actually dropped in the last couple of weeks as a result of what Heather was talking about, this predictive idea that the Fed may cut next year. And so the 2-year yield is actually higher right now than the 10-year yield. What does that mean for you? If you're thinking about a mortgage, call today and lock it. Lock it now, because it's probably going to go up in the next few weeks.
That's good advice. And, people have to do everything they can. They've lost so much money in their 401ks, Heather. And it's so sad because there's a new poll out about Americans and how they were thinking inflation would last. And, most Americans believe we are in a recession. This is a Harris-Harvard Cap poll.
Right.
39% say, yeah, we're already there. 49% think we'll be there in 1 year. So they're going to slow their spending, and that's a whole other thing here. And I've been reading a little bit about this stop-go policy that they say they may want to avoid, Heather. What's the Fed to do? Because there's no guarantees. Even Jerome Powell says, I can't guarantee a soft landing for the U.S. economy.
No, and that's what last week we were making, I guess not fun of Jay Powell, but a little bit light of what he said. I don't know what to do, because He's in a box because he wants to raise interest rates to offset inflation. But historically, if you have a weak consumer, the Federal Reserve would be in a position like they were in 2008 where they need to cut rates. They can't do that right now with inflation as rampant as it is. And consumer sentiment is the worst on record. I think the one thing that is holding us back from a full-blown recession is a jobs report on Friday. If you have strong jobs growth, it's really difficult to have a recession if people are going to work. So if you see unemployment, that unemployment rate tick up, we're going to get that data tomorrow, then I think the likelihood of a recession is a lot stronger than it is now, near full employment.
But mentally, people may feel we're already in it, and that will curb their spending and their shopping, and they can't afford gas, so you already have that retraction, unfortunately.
We'll all be standing by for the old non-farm payrolls data.
There you go.
I love it.
We love it. All right, great to see you, Heather and Seth. Thanks for joining us for this Money Huddle. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.